Hello, today I'm going to read you a story, and I want you to focus on some questions that might be going through your head when I'm reading you this story. Now, something I always want you to remember, that good readers always ask questions. They always ask questions. It can be about what is going on in the story. It can be about how you feel about the story. It can be maybe the story reminds you of a time or something in the world, but good readers always ask questions. Now, these questions, most question words start with who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, I want you to think about those questions as we are reading, okay? Because questions tell us about the story elements. Now, we learned about story elements in kindergarten, but we're going to review them, okay? Story elements are the characters. So, who is in the story? Oh, there's that question word, who. Who is in the story? Now, this can be people, animals, things, something that the story is about. All right? And so it tells us the story elements and questions tell us about the characters. It tells us about the setting. When did the story take place? And where did the story take place? Maybe in a forest, maybe at school, maybe it was at nighttime or in the day. That's the time, okay? So when and where the story took place tells us about the setting. Now, questions also help us understand the plot of the story, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story that we're reading. So we might ask questions like, how? How are they going to do that? Maybe the characters get into a problem and you think, how are they going to solve this? Or maybe, why? Why did the story end up like that? So we're asking questions, how, why, maybe what? What's going to happen next? Okay, so those are all question words that we are going to be thinking about as we read this story, The Thing About Spring. Now, a question that I always ask myself, no matter what book I read, it can be a children's book, it can be a book that I read for fun, like an adult book, okay? I always ask myself, what is this story going to be about? And usually, we can tell this by just looking at the front cover and maybe even the back cover, okay? This usually has some of the characters on it, like I see a rabbit, I see a bird, I see a bear, and I see a mouse. I'm thinking to myself, those are probably the characters. I see some snow on the ground. The trees are bare. I know that's a sign of winter. But then I see, oh, rabbit's wearing a scarf, so it must still be cold like winter. But I see him holding a flower. And flowers to me represent spring. The Thing About Spring. That's the title. The Thing About Spring. The author and the illustrator, so the person that wrote the words and drew the pictures, is Daniel Kirk. Let's start reading. What do you think this story is going to be about? Always ask yourself questions. The Thing About Spring. The world looks a little different today, Mouse said one bright morning. It smells different too, said Bird. There are buds on the trees and new colors in the sky. I feel warm and happy. Me too, said Mouse. Spring is finally here. Hooray! Mouse and Bird hurried to share the good news with their friends. Rabbit was in the meadow, busy with a shovel and pail. "What are you doing, Rabbit?" Mouse called. "Saving snow while I still can," Rabbit grumbled. "We won't see any more of this until next year." "But spring is coming," Bird chirped. "Aren't you excited?" Does he look very excited? I have another question for you. Why does Mouse and Bird feel happy about the weather, how the weather is changing, but Rabbit feels sad? Why do you think that is? I see smiles on their face. It looks like they're happy that the weather is changing. Maybe they like spring. Maybe they like warmer weather. But Rabbit, he looks sad. Maybe he likes cold weather. Maybe he does not like spring and does not like warm weather. Let's keep reading. "Excited?" said Rabbit. "Ha! The thing about spring is that I won't be able to follow my friends' tracks in the snow. Then I won't be able to find them." Oh, he sounds worried. He's maybe afraid he's going to lose his friends. "But now you won't be too cold," said Bird. "And you won't have to look for me. I'll be right beside you." "Me too," said Mouse. His friends are trying to make him feel better. "The thing about spring," said Rabbit, "is that I won't be able to make snow bunnies anymore. I won't be able to build snow forts either. You know how much fun I have doing that. I won't be able to make snowballs to throw at my favorite targets." "But little shoots will grow up out of the ground," said Mouse. Oh, look, there's a little plant. "So you won't have to look very far to find delicious things to eat." "The thing about spring," said Rabbit, "is that Bear's waking up. You know how bad he smells at the end of a long winter, and I'm sure he's going to want a hug." Oh, a new character's introduced. The bear. I bet he's stinky because he hibernates all winter. He sleeps all winter. You would probably be really stinky too if you slept for months. "Oh, Rabbit," said Bear with a yawn. "Just because I'm a little stinky doesn't mean we can't share a big bear hug." "I want a hug too," said Bird. "Me 3," said Mouse. Rabbit does not look happy. He's plugging his nose. "The thing about spring," said Rabbit, "is that it rains when you're not expecting it." "But rain brings out the flowers," said Mouse. "And the worms," said Bird. "And it makes you clean," said Bear. "And ready for more hugs." "The thing about spring," said Rabbit, "is that when the day gets longer, the night gets shorter, and I am cranky. I'm a cranky bunny when I don't get enough sleep." "Me too." "But in the spring, we need more daytime because there are so many things to do," said Bird. "In spring, I love to make loop-de-loops and race the clouds through the sky," said Bird. "In the spring, I love to nibble tasty buds and dig tunnels in the soft pine needles," said Mouse. "In the spring, I love to splash in the lake and dance in the sun," said Bear. "Spring is wonderful." His friends are trying to convince him that spring is wonderful. "Well, the thing about spring," said Rabbit, "is that all the animals chatter on and on and on, and the racket hurts my ears." "I'll try to be more quiet," said Bird. whispered Mouse.
Me three, whispered Bear. But it's hard not to make a little noise when spring is here.
All right, Rabbit sighed. I suppose no one can stop the seasons from changing. But the thing about spring is that when I stomp around so much, the sun is so warm and it makes me really thirsty. How about you? When the weather gets warmer, do you get more thirsty? I know I do.
Me too, said Bear. I think we're all a little thirsty.
Well then, said Rabbit, you should be glad I saved some snow. Look inside my pail. The thing about spring is that it's full of surprises. Oh, look at that sun shining behind him. What do you think happens to freezing snow when it gets warm? It melts into a liquid. It melts into water. It's wonderful, Bird cheeped. Now that spring is here, the snow is turned into water. It's like the winter gave us a present before it went away, said Mouse.
I found some cups, Rabbit said. Dig in, it will be our last taste of winter.
And our first sip of spring, said Bird.
Here's to spring, said Bear. I think it's going to be great.
Me too, said Bird. Me three, said Mouse. The friends looked at Rabbit.
Oh, all right, he said. Me four. Spring is here. Hooray!
So I have one last question for you. How does Rabbit feel about spring at the beginning of the story and at the end of the story? At the beginning, he did not like spring, did he? He was not excited about it. But his friends told him all the things he gets to do in spring and how spring is so wonderful. And now he's starting to like it. He's finally smiling about spring. So go ahead and think about the characters of the story and the setting of the story. Who was in the story? I remember Bear, Rabbit, Mouse, and Bird. And where was the story? I remember they were in a forest and it was in spring, right? Spring is here. The thing about spring is that it's here. So that's the setting of the story. So I would like for you to retell the story by answering the questions on the slides, okay? Bye.